Hey everyone, welcome to Friday Live. I'm excited to be here. My name is Ashley Hay and I'm here to inspire you with some arty inspiration to take you into a weekend of creative fun and play. So what we're going to look at today, of course, is we're going to look at how you can use natural materials in your artwork with Powertex Transparent Ultimate Medium and also Bronze Powertex Ultimate Medium and Stone Art. So we are going to have a lot of fun today, and whether you work two-dimensionally or three-dimensionally, you're going to love this. And we're just going to be using a little bit of quirky fun with a paintbrush base. So we're going to use the paintbrush as a basis for which to add our natural materials. So without any further ado, welcome to Friday Live. And let's get started with some artful play to take you into your weekend. Okay, we'll flip quickly down to the art table and you can see here that I've collected a whole range of natural materials. And so it's actually quite exciting because the other day I just went for a little bit of a walk just outside my door, and I went, I just need something to add to my piece. And for a long time, I've wanted to do some sculpture with natural materials and Powertex. And I thought, well, today is the perfect day to have a play and show you how you can play creatively and problem solve along the way with what you actually do. So where are we headed today? We are going to get our paintbrushes that we started last week, or you can create a new one this weekend, because I know a lot of you have actually done some fabulous pieces yourself. I've been so thrilled to see your shares in the group with what you've been doing around this upcycling challenge. So keep going, you guys. You are awesome, and don't forget to drop me a comment and let me know that you're here. And if you are playing with some arty paintbrushes, then let us know that as well. So here's the table, and so you can see I've collected a whole range of natural materials here. And so welcome to everyone. We've got Lisa Marie and we've got Cheryl here with us this morning. And so guys, just let us know where you're from as well, and say hello to everyone. So I've got a whole range of natural materials here. Now, I guess I should have started with why I went for and collected them all. So you can see I've got a whole lot of exciting things. I've got some sticks. I've got these fabulous sort of curly leaves. And I've got, this is actually awesome. That's off a grass tree. So it's got beautiful natural resin colours with the red bush resin in there. And then, of course, some gorgeous bits of bark textures that just have the most glorious colours and textures. Now, I'm sure that you guys are like me and that you can walk out and you can actually in your garden find amazing textures like these sorts of examples. I just literally went out the back door, through the back gate and into the back parkland area from my house, and I went, what's here that I could use and play with? So wherever you are, have a look for your local materials and utilise them in your artwork. So Mariana's just saying, hey Ashley, I'm glued to the screen, ready to go for a great creative bit of creative play this weekend. Welcome, Mariana, and lovely to see you here. So Lisa Marie is from Narooma. So where is Narooma? Is that New South Wales, Lisa Marie? And so let's take a look at these, and we've got this beautiful bark. Now, if you are doing artwork, these are the sorts of textures that you would want to retain and keep in your artwork because they're just absolutely glorious. And this is where your Powertex Transparent is actually going to dry clear onto your surface, and it's going to harden and protect the colours. However, there are considerations when you're working with natural materials and with Powertex, and I'm going to go through some of those today, and that way we can you can play with natural materials with a bit of confidence. I've also got this wonderful, I kind of went, oh, look at that. That is just so cool. So it's all kind of wrapped around and it's got these amazing textures and it's just very, very nice. So I'll come back to that one in a minute. And just lots of this beautiful bark colour. And then I thought these were quite interesting too. So they're kind of stringy. Now, they are very, very, you know, they're quite brittle and they're quite soft in the same way as sticks are. So I'll be going through some considerations of things that you need to think about when working with these sorts of materials. So let's just move some of this away. And I'll make myself a bit of room here so that I can get in and I can show you more easily what we're going to have a play with today, and we can get cracking with some practical applications. So if you're playing along today, you just need to have your art materials ready. And I know some of you like to multitask, so you watch and play as you go, and so create and play. So that's awesome. I tend to like to do one thing and focus and then play after. So, but yeah, if you can do both, then you go. So if you're doing both, let me know if you're playing along, or if you're going to have a start with playing with arty materials and natural materials on the weekend. That would be excellent to know. Alrighty, so where did this journey start? Why did I go out and collect all these materials? So as you know, last week I showed you the idea of doing some upcycling using some different types of brushes. So this one's a scrubbing brush, and then we've got you know, our paintbrushes that we looked at doing last week. So what I've done is I've just added a few materials to get myself started here. So you can see that I've actually started to add on some sticks, and I've got my little paintbrush guy. And if you want to know how to attach the heads and how to do the base, then have a look at last week's live, because I do go into those things. So what I've done here is I have just stuck down some plastic wrap into those bristles so that it's pushed out the textures of them so that it's more three-dimensional. And what you'll find is if you try and place it where you want to place it when you're working with the Powertex, it's actually easier to do something like that. I've split it with the wrap, and then I've also stuffed the wrap down there. So I can actually still do that. So it's still a little bit malleable, as you can see. And so I can go away and I can go back at the end of the live and pop that plastic wrap back in there. So if your paintbrush isn't looking the way you would like it to look with these ends, then that's a little trick for you. And all I've done is I've taken some of the sticks and then I've added it to the piece. So Robin said that she's here now and she was getting a haircut. I thought she meant she was cutting the hair of her paintbrush. So welcome, Robin, and nice for you to pop in with us. So there we go. So we've got, I guess what you need to think about when you are joining natural materials or working with the natural materials is there is two things that you need to consider. One is that some of the materials are very brittle that you're working with. So if you do decide that you'd like to work with some sticky elements, then obviously, you know, they're liable to snap. So what you want to do is you want to strengthen them in your artwork, and that's where your Powertex comes in. It will actually strengthen and harden. Now, just a note on that, it's not like a resin where if you put it on, it's going to stop it breaking altogether. It is still going to be a little bit brittle and a little bit fragile, but it will be stronger once you put your Powertex on it than if you didn't. Now, with this one, what I've done is I've used bronze Powertex because I didn't really care for the colour of these sticks. It doesn't matter whether I do it bronze or transparent. So if I wanted to keep the colour of the wood, then I would have used transparent, which I will show you in just a minute. So that's the first consideration. Consideration that your natural materials are quite fragile. So things like your leaves, which are absolutely beautiful to use. You'll notice one thing with this is I have also let the material dry out. So there's a third consideration for you. If you have moist materials that still have water, get them and hang them so that they hang from maybe a curtain rail or your clothes rack, and just leave them for a few weeks until they are totally dried out and crispy. So especially if you're working with something like seaweed, that's a really good tip. Give it a wash out and take the salt out of it and then hang it so that it dries out fully. Okay, you guys can't see it, but my cat has decided to hop up here on the bench. So if he steps in front of the camera, he's just getting a little bit curious. So this is the first time he's joined me live, and he's decided it looks like a bit of fun, I think. So he has actually been sitting on my art table while I've been creating recently. He's taken to sitting up there, and he's such a fluffy cat, and he drops hair. It drives me mad, but I love having him there with me to help. So yeah, just a little aside for you. Alrighty, so back to this and your natural materials. So one is they will tend to be brittle and soft. Your Powertex Ultimate Medium is going to harden and strengthen them, and that's where it's going to come in handy. You also want to consider drying them out so that they're thoroughly dried out and they don't have any moisture. And then finally, when you are adding them to your artwork, you want to ensure that anything that you add is added so that it's going to be really strong on the join. So the last thing that you want is you don't want your pieces to fall off. So it's really essential that you make your artwork strong as you're working with the form. So what I have done here is I have simply got some of the stone art clay. Now, the stone art, for those of you who don't know, is essentially a refined paper pulp that works really well when you mix it with Powertex, and it makes an air-dried clay. So you will need the stone art, and also I recommend the bronze Powertex to use to make up a clay, and then it is going to make a brown clay like the clay that I'm using here, and it works perfectly with your natural materials. Haha, Robin, that's hilarious. So Robin's just saying, oh, a bit of extra texture with the cat hair. So yes, it does add a little bit of extra texture, and sometimes it's unwanted. So yeah, so there we go. Alrighty, so yeah, so make sure that your joins are strong, and what I've used here is I've used the stone art clay. Now, this is something that I do all the time. I wrap the clay up in a plastic wrap, and once you have mixed the clay, it will last up to around about 6 months if you keep it in an airtight container, and then you're ready to mould or sculpt it into a particular shape, or use it for joining sections, which is just a brilliant use of the medium. So stone art is fabulous if you're looking to create texture on your surfaces, or if you can use it with a cake mould as well to press into the cake mould and then add your piece. So what I've done here is I've used it to add my sticks on to my piece, and I've painted the sticks with the Powertex as well. Now, this is just my first layer on my sticks. I can actually take several layers of Powertex on this, and obviously the more layers I take, the stronger it will become as well. And it takes 3 weeks to fully harden before it becomes as strong as it will. Now, something that I quite like to do is I quite often also like to mimic nature. So you can see how you could easily use wire to create this sort of form, or you could use a stick shape as a basis to wrap some threads around, which would be really, really beautiful as well. So let's take a look at the Powertex Transparent and what we can do next. So before we go there, I can show you how I've added on the sticks, just so that you can see very, very simply, you know, how that's been done. I hadn't intended to show you on my existing piece, so I'll just get an interesting little stick here. So I could add this whole stick, or I could add this stick here, or I could add both of them, or I could add parts of them. Now, I like the look of that. So you can see that's creating a really nice shape there. And so that's what you're looking for. When you're doing it, you want to go, okay, well, you know, what shape is going to be nice, and how far up do I actually want this stick to go? How far do I want it to dangle down? Where do I want it to go? So I'm just going to break this one round about there, and you can see I'm not doing it terribly carefully. And then I can take that on as an element. Now, this little handle bit here is actually kind of quite cool, because I could actually force that in if I had some pliers here, which I don't have, but that would actually also be really a neat way. I'm just browsing my eyes over my desk here to see if I have some pliers, but I don't. So I want to take that on there. Now, you can see that there's a big gap in there. So if I want that to sit that way, then I need to make it so that I'm filling in that gap, and it's got really good strength along that handle where you're not going to see it. Or I can actually turn the stick, and I'm just seeing if it's going to make any difference. No, it makes the gap worse. So in actual fact, I'm quite happy with it. Maybe, so I'm looking at this shape here and how I want it to look. I'm going to bring it down. I might bring that really knobby bit sort of just below that handle there. So it's sitting on the handle. Now you can see that this actually it's wriggling around here. So you can see that that actually has quite a nice connection. So it's connected onto the metal. It's got a connection on this knobby bit here. So it's touching here, and touching here. So there's 3 areas of really good strength there that I can actually work with. Then all I need to do is get that stone art clay and get my Powertex and attach that on there. So just let me know if you would actually like to see me do that. So I will get started, and I can maybe just show you a little bit. So I just get that, and I'm going to paint my stick with Powertex before I get started. And then I also, with your Powertex, you want to do anything you're doing sort of wet to wet. So just flick that over there so that we've got an existing wet area. And I just want to get rid of that little drippy bit that I've got on my table there so that I don't get it everywhere. And then I want to get my stone art clay. Now this is a little bit fiddly. The other thing that I could do is I could use masking tape to tape it on, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little bit of the stone art clay onto here where it's going to connect to. I'm I'm going to take a little bit onto here where it's going to connect to, and then I'm going to take a little bit more, actually. I'm going to roll it into a little bit of a coil. So I think the difference between, doing an artwork which is good and an artwork which is really good is attention to the small details and taking your time to really resolve how things look and how you want them to be. So I'm going to pop that onto the base of this stick here, and I'm just going to wrap it around a little bit. Don't know if you can see that really well. Let me just come up to the camera a little bit closer there. And so all I'm doing is I'm working that stone art clay onto those edges so that it's really stuck well onto that stick without hitting the top texture too much, so that I've still got that nice top texture that I can retain if I want to. Now I'm going to get this bowl here. I'm going to rest this on here. She's a little bit heavier there. So she wants to keep falling out. There we go. And then I'm going to just sit that where I actually want that in place. And I'm just going to check that it's going to connect with the areas that I was planning on it connecting with. So there you go. So now you can see that it's connected with this section here, and this section here. The stone art is excellent for giving you an instant stick with your pieces. Now, I would not leave this all lumpy and horrible, and I would actually roll a little bit more of a coil and get into a little bit more of some of those gaps if I wanted to. But what I will do is I want to make sure that it's properly stuck down. And to do that, I'm just using a clay tool. And I'm getting in there, got a little bit of water in a bowl here. I'll just bring that over there. Now, I don't want to use too much water, or I'm actually diluting my Powertex. Oh, excuse me. So I want to just, like I say, make that really neat on those edges and those joins, so that I know even if I don't do a layer over this part of the piece, it's going to look fabulous because it actually has been finished properly. Now, if you know that you are going to pop another layer over the top of it, then you don't have to pay so much attention to the lumpy bits. But what I like to do is I like to pay attention to the details as I go, so that I know that it is going to sit really, really well on that piece. Now you can see how this is coming off here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a little bit of the bronze Powertex, which is what I've got on my brush, and I'm just going to go back into that section there. So I can actually go on the outside of this clay, on those edges where it's joined. And I don't mind, like I say, I'm probably actually going to end up painting the stick anyway, because it's not such a nice colour that I have to leave it that way. And I certainly don't feel like I need to. So it's all about attention to detail, and you can resolve problems and things as you go. So when you're working with any new materials, you do need to actually resolve, do some problem solving. Hey, Carol, she's just popped in. So you've just remembered that we're on. So nice to see you. And so, yeah, so with any artwork, what makes it interesting is that, you have an idea and you go, oh, I'd really like to do that. And then from what you've already done, you have the confidence to have some you know, to play with how you can execute your idea. And through that play, you will discover so much in terms of, you know, how you can actually execute and finish your artworks. And that's where, you know, experience and playing with a medium and playing with your ideas really consolidates, you know, and makes your artwork really interesting and professional. So if I wanted to, I could put more clay into some of those gaps, but you get the idea. So I've just used a little bit of a damp finger just to smooth that off. And here you can see that it's not quite finished in terms of joining. So I would probably add a little bit more clay in there and smooth it off so it's nice like the other side. And then I would just make sure that I'm happy with how this is looking. It's kind of looking interesting. I like this little bit of metal, so I wouldn't necessarily take the metal, you know, cover the metal. I might leave the metal sticking like that. So what I might do is just tidy up those bits which I'm likely to see, and make sure that it's looking like an interesting and careful join where I'm wanting that join to be onto the wood. So I would just play with that, add my pieces, and so you can see that's how the natural materials can be added. Now, I don't have to do it that way. You could problem solve and you could have a play with how you can add the materials. So another alternative, like I say, is you could actually use some masking tape to hold it in place, and then you could add your clay onto your piece. You could put some masking tape in place, and then you could bind it with, you know, some, let me get some mop string or string. So I'm going to show you that right now. In fact, I'll show you how we can actually pop that on to strengthen this area and also create some interesting texture around this top bit. So what I thought would be nice is this stuff here is just gorgeous. So it's just got the most rich colour and lends itself to having the Powertex dry naturally and clear on it. And I'm quite excited about using it. I absolutely love it, and I'm looking forward to using some in my mixed media work as well, because of course you don't have to just do it on three-dimensional pieces. All of this will translate into you know, other ways of doing things. So I've just broken off a couple of pieces here, and look at this one. It is perfect for me to pop into that hole there, and look at that. Doesn't that look super? So that's where I don't know, hang on, I'll move this black thing here, and I hope you can see the colour of that. It just looks magic. But see how it also finishes off that top edge. So you can no longer see that join. But even though that's the case, as I say, I quite like to make sure that everything's sealed and finished off properly underneath. And I think it's that attention to detail that will really take your artwork to the next level. So that's where I'm going with these pieces. And then I could add more around the back once that top layer's dried. But if we have a look at this, see how this area here, it looks a little bit ordinary. So what I thought might be quite nice would be to have some of that mop string create some texture up around her neck piece there, and it will just give another element. And not only that, it will also make that join where the sticks are really quite strong. So I'm going to tease one of these ends off just in case I want a random knotty random end, and then I've got my length of string. So all this is this is cut off a mop. Thanks, Carol. She's just saying it's looking great. Appreciate your feedback on that. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get my Powertex bronze and I'm going to actually dip this into here and cover it. So I'm just going to quickly pop on some gloves and then we can dip that in there and pop it onto the piece to create some really lovely textural elements. So just a note, what I used this for is I used the bowl to sit my piece across so that I could actually balance it, because you can see that if I was leaning it on the ground, it would basically pop the sticks off the piece where I'm really looking. Sorry, I got distracted by one of the comments there, but yeah, so it helps to keep the integrity of the join if I'm not leaning on those other pieces and it's pushing it off. I hope that makes sense. Please let me know that you understand what I'm saying there. So Mariana's just said that she really likes that I'm still keeping the look of the paintbrush. So yeah, we'll see how much of that actually you can still see at the end, but you'll definitely see his hair. Now, when I do mop string or string, I find this the easiest way to do it. So you saw I dipped one end and then I can simply dip the other end and I can just massage it in. I don't like my fabric to get too wet. I like to keep it so that it's not wet and shiny and totally slippery, but it's got a nice coverage and it's not dry and crusty as well. Now that I've got Powertex on my hands, just a little recycling tip here. It is really good to wash your gloves and try and make them last for a day. So that way you're not actually, going through so much plastic, and it will actually be better for the environment. So I make my gloves last longer than a day. So there you go. And but the trick is to actually wash your hands with your gloves on as if you're washing your hands. So I'm just drying my brush off and I'm going to take a little bit of Powertex on here where I'm going to put that mop string. And I'm just going to take it around. So the rule is well, it's not a rule. Rules are made to be broken, right? But basically, general rule of thumb is pop the wet Powertex on where you want to add something if you're joining it. So I'm going to start around about here. Then I'm just going to get that and I'm going to wind that around. Now, you're likely not going to see this bit because you saw that I put the other element on there. Okay, so I should have started at the top, right? But I do want it to actually hold these sticks in place as well. So you can see the great thing with the Powertex is there's no right and wrong either, and you can actually take things off and you can change them and, really easily as you go. So there we are. So I didn't use that messy bit. I can always put another piece of mop string in here, which I probably will do, but that is actually attached on and it's going to give a little bit more strength to that join once it actually dries. So I could have left it up where it was and just added a second bit of mop string on, but you can see how with the Powertex, it is going to super harden that fabric because it's really got into the fibres of the element, and it is going to super harden that and make that connection really, really strong. So even though I've got the stone art on here, which is also going to strengthen it, this is going to go rock hard because the Powertex Ultimate Medium has gone into the fibres of the string. And so it is going to be like a rock around that join there. So For fun, let's just have a little bit of Powertex transparent. I'll wipe up my bronzy mess here and I'll show you how we can just add these elements on. So I like to work with my fingers and feel things. So I've got a bit of, my fingers are a little bit messy now. But as I say, I'm going to put this piece on here. Now, I can also attach it again with a little bit of the stone art clay. If I had done it while this clay was really wet, then I wouldn't need some clay on the back there, but I'm just going to use the Powertex transparent because the clay is still a little bit wet from earlier. So I've got my Powertex transparent. This one will dry clear, and I've actually got it in a sauce bottle, and all you need to make sure if you do something like this, so I've got one in a bottle that size, got one in a bottle that size, you just have to make sure that once you're finished that you take the nozzles off and wash the nozzles out so that the next time that you use it, it actually, you know, comes through easily. So I want this side up, so I'm going to pop some Powertex on there. I haven't got a very clean brush. I would ordinarily, oh, hang on, I've got another one here. And I'm just going to spread that around a little bit. Pop some on the front surface here. Not that I need to do that yet. And I can throw a little bit onto here. Now, like I say, if it doesn't stick instantly, it will stick. But if you do want an instant stick, then you can actually, you know, use some stone art clay in underneath. So you can see that that's not actually sitting on there. And so it would be better if I got a little bit of stone art. I'm just getting a little bit here. I'll just mould a little bit there. Just throw a little bit more, make it a bit moister because it's been sitting out. And then I can just get that coil and I can pop that in there, and that is going to keep it in place where I want it without it actually showing later on. And so that's going to make it super strong on that join. See that? So that's what you want to consider. You want to consider, okay, how can I make that join stronger? And as you're working, and that's where your problem solving comes in. And then from there, I want to do another couple of pieces around my edges. So I'll get my Powertex again. Now, you can see I haven't actually used this bush resin before, but of course, because it is bush resin, it's actually got an oily substance in it. So it'll be interesting to see how well this actually sticks, because you can see on this bit here, it's actually resisting. So if I wanted to, I could just give it a little bit of a wipe with some sandpaper before I added it onto my artwork. Now, again, if I don't get that instant stick and it doesn't stay where I want it to, which it seems to be behaving itself, I can actually put a little bit of clay on there. Now, I don't want it to close that up so much. I'd rather see some of this sticky layer underneath. So I am going to use just a tiny little bit of my clay again. And you can see how useful it is for actually creating that instant stick, but also holding it exactly where you want it to be. So I'll pop that on the back there. And then I can put it exactly where I want it to be. So now I've got a little bit of a layer there, so I can see through there, and I just need to go, okay, what do I want to happen at the top here? I really want that to sort of come together a little bit more at the top, so that it's joining at the top, but there's a little bit of a split further down, and that's just me manipulating it. Then once you've put it in place, you just need to trust that the medium is going to dry rock hard. And I think that's where working with the Powertex over time, you develop that understanding that the Powertex is going to dry like rock. Now, because I've got a little bit of Powertex on my fingers where normally I would actually clean them off, I have got a little bit on that top surface there. So if you do get any unwanted Powertex on the top of your surface, you can just actually take it off with a damp sponge. So I can then take some transparent over the top of this, and that's going to dry clear. And if it resists, it doesn't matter too much. We'll see how it comes up. And then I can add the other bits on. So that's the start of me sort of, thinking about my piece. Alrighty, so why did I pick up this piece? I just went, when I looked at this, I went, oh, wouldn't that make such a cool body for one of these paintbrushes? So instead of it just having like a handle piece, it's going to be a lot more interesting if I have it, entwined in something. So you can see straight away that that is just a lot more of an interesting piece. Now, I would just resolve, okay, do I want to break that in half? Do I maybe want to turn it the other way around so that it's the other way? Does it work better upside down? What are the possibilities of what I can do with this piece, and how would I resolve it? So they're just all creative decisions that you can make as you're working, but you can see how beautiful this piece is, and how it just would really enhance one of these brushes. And look at these gorgeous textures. I hope you can see those. I think you can. Look at these gorgeous textures on here. And of course, I would be wanting to highlight those colours. So if I want to keep that reddy colour of the bark, I can just simply use transparent. If I don't mind if it all goes dark and then I want to dry brush back into it, then I can do that too. So this would be a perfect sculptural element to add some rust effects to, and make it look rusty. So there you have it, a few natural elements for you to consider today. And like I say, the main thing is that you consider those three aspects. The one, that the natural elements are a little bit brittle, and so you do have to make sure that you are covering it well with your Powertex so that you get a bit more strength, and it gives it a hardening agent. The Powertex is going to take 3 weeks to fully harden, so it will still be a little bit delicate for a few days, and then as the days progress, it will get harder and harder. The other thing is that if your natural materials aren't dried out, you need to dry them out so that they haven't got the moisture in them. That is also totally beneficial. I love the idea of working with seaweed and seaweed colours, and so when I've done that and used that as a textural element, which is just gorgeous, so you'll have to have a play with that, you just need to wash out the salt and then make sure the seaweed is dried off too. So that's brittle, dry it out, and then make sure that you have really made your joints strong. You've paid attention to the finishes and the detail as you go. And then if you see those underneath layers, it doesn't matter, because you've done beautiful layered textures in underneath as well. So guys, I hope that you have enjoyed that today. I haven't put up any of my usual things, so I'll just quickly recap. So we used an old paintbrush, Powertex transparent, Powertex bronze, and also the stone art, and we have had a look at the different possibilities that you can do with that. And then just remembering that the Powertex Ultimate Medium is going to act as a hardener, and it's also going to act as a glue, and with the transparent it will dry clear. And the stone art in today's demonstration, the clay, the air dried clay that I used, is simply made using the bronze Powertex and the stone art, which mixes together. If you don't know how to do that, there is a YouTube video which is super helpful. I might put that in the comments so you can see and watch that if you need to. So absolutely awesome medium. I love Powertex. I've been working with it in my artwork for years. The possibilities are insane. And so I hope today has inspired you with a bit of arty inspiration for the weekend, and that you have a super creative week. And of course, we did talk about the stone art, that it can be moulded into like cake moulds, or it can be modelled into shapes and faces that you want to make, and it can also be used to give you an instant stick like I've done today. So if you do there's just a quick recap on the mediums that I've used. And then if you would like to connect with us, if you've got any questions, the Powertex Australia Creative Hub on Facebook is the perfect place to ask them. I will quite often jump on and take the time to answer any questions that come through. And so don't think that anything is silly to ask, and I'm here to help you get started with Powertex, and hopefully you fall in love with it as much as I love playing with this art medium. So 10 years down the track of playing with this in my artwork, and I'm still loving it. And there are just still so many untouched and undiscovered possibilities that I haven't done yet with this medium. So I'm still excited about it. If you want to learn more, you can go to the website, of course, and there is loads of product information. There's links to different videos that you will find there. So lots and lots of information to help you get started with the Powertex. And also, like I say, my main thing for doing these lives every week is that I'm hoping that it inspires you guys to get creative, and that it gives you a starting point for the weekend. Robin's just saying the only silly question there is the one that you don't ask. Absolutely. And as all of these guys that are on today will attest to, you know, the Creative Hub is excellent. Everyone will answer your questions there. So it is such a great group. And Natalie has popped in as well, and she's just said that she loves combining natural elements with Powertex, and it's just so much fun. And Natalie is very clever with assemblage. So yeah, and down the rabbit hole is Natalie, just drop the dates in that you guys are going to and where you're going to be. So drop the dates into the feed, because down the rabbit hole, there's some beautiful artists working in Queensland with Powertex, and you can see them at some events around Queensland. So make sure you connect with those guys if you are there. Alrighty, so I hope, like I say, you have the most wonderful creative weekend, and that you maybe are inspired to create a few quirky paintbrushes and have a bit of fun, especially, I hope, and that this, you know, this coming week, maybe play with some natural materials and discover what you can do with them, and the possibilities are just endless. Pay attention to those joins, and let's connect in the hub. So see you soon, and in the meantime, enjoy creating. Ciao for now, guys. Bye. See ya.